e-rev, applied directly to the forehead. e-rev, applied directly to the forehead.
e-rev is not responsible for any monitor to head-related injuries. View at your own risk.
Hey guys, I'm Twiz here, and thank you for joining us at e-rev TV as we are bringing you our very first edition of what I'm calling the Champions Test Drive. And it's kind of cool the reason that I've come up with that name. Basically, we're going to go through and do a detailed guide each week of the free champions that are available that Riot puts out. So this week, out of all the champions, I've chosen to do Miss Fortune, just because she's definitely one of my favorite champions. Not to mention she has two really big, ginormous boomsticks that she's able to use to completely annihilate teams. And you guys thought I was going somewhere else with that, but I was not. So basically what this is it's a guide series based on the free champion. So you don't get that feeling like, hey, you know what, I just spent, $7 or $8 and I bought this champion and I really don't like it. I don't enjoy playing it, and I just feel like I wasted my money, which is terrible. You don't want to make a bad investment, so that's why we're here to help you out with the Champion Test Drive. So this week we are talking about, again, I'll say it, one of my favorite champions, which is Miss Fortune. Definitely one of the stronger AD carries in the game here. So let's talk a little bit about Miss Fortune's role in the game. Miss Fortune is a ranged AD carry, and her role in the game is to really come out in the mid to the late game section after she's built a few items and completely annihilate teams. So part of her being able to do this is going to be protection from other teammates. So one thing that you have to look at when picking Miss Fortune is going to be making sure that you have the correct team comp to go along with it. And one of the reasons that it's more important with Miss Fortune compared to other AD carries, as I get to it, is going to be the cons. So I'll talk about the pros in a minute. Let's talk about the cons first. Unlike Tristana and Corki, Miss Fortune doesn't have any kind of escapability skill. So as we look at her skills here, yes, she has a slow. Yes, she has some damage. And her strut does increase her movement speed. But she doesn't have that Valkyrie jump that Corki has. And that she doesn't have that rocket jump that Tristana possesses. And what that means is that in a situation during a team fight, if Miss Fortune's targeted immediately, she has no way to really get away from this. Yeah, you can pick Summoner Flash. Summoner Flash still doesn't give you the kind of range and distance, and it's got quite a long cooldown. So, just a prime example here. As last night I was casting a match as we were watching Gracchus play along with Ice Roses. Ice Roses was playing the role of Miss Fortune, but this video I'm going to show you is going to be in the first person of Morgana. And immediately what I want you to look at is what the other team did in this ranked game, as Poppy, playing a role as an anti-carry here, goes straight after Miss Fortune, pushing her away from this team fight and not allowing her to be able to put any damage in, and eventually killing her. Where if you were playing the role of Corki or Tristana, you could have used the Valkyrie or the rocket jump to position yourself differently in the team fight, where either A, you have your team to be able to push in and protect you, or B, you can actually escape from this team fight and pull Poppy away from the fight as well and let the battle be 4v4. So let me bring you this view up and let you take a look at this quite quickly here. I'll play it a couple times for you so you really get the gist. So let me show you the first time here.
Oh, and what a snare there. Beautiful snare. And we do see a new ult coming in, and Poppy quickly doing what she needs to do and going straight after the carry. And that's going to be forcing Ice Roses out of this fight. There's not a lot she's going to be able to do about it. Unfortunately, when Poppy did that, it did allow these guys to go through and get another kill.
So I'm going to bring it back here. I'm going to show you that one more time here, just so you can really understand the position that Ice Roses was just put in. When Poppy comes at you, she has a massive, massive amount of burst damage, some of the highest in the game. And also, when she's got her ultimate on you, your team has very little that they can do. And this is where escapability really comes in. You'll immediately see her position herself towards the front of the fight instead of towards the back of the fight, where she's then forced to flash, where she flashes to where I would normally position myself as an AD carry. So she flashes out, but Poppy was able to easily chase through the splash and finish her off. So let me show you it one more time so you really get a look at what we're talking about. And one of the hardest things to really predict as an AD carry, which are going to be your anti-carry champions. And just a few champions that you know to look for that really fit in this role well. Poppy being a very strong one. Olaf, another strong one. Jax as well as Jin Zhao, both having abilities where they can jump straight through this fight and go right after the carry. Master Yi, another one with his ultimate, can speed directly into the fight, go through all of your CC, and just get straight to that carry and force that carry out of the fight. So those are just a few off the top of my head that you should really look out for. So those are ones that you want to, when you're playing against these guys, you may want to consider, instead of picking Miss Fortune, picking a different kind of an AD carry, or picking your support champions around this role. So let me show you it one more time so you can immediately see how Poppy goes directly after Miss Fortune here.
Oh, and what a snare there. Beautiful snare. And we do see a new ult coming in, and Poppy quickly doing what she needs to do and going straight after the carry. And that's going to be forcing Ice Roses out of this fight. There's not a lot she's going to be able to do about it. Unfortunately, when Poppy did that, it did allow these guys to go through and get another kill.
So there we've seen it one more time, and that was Miss Fortune being taken down by an anti-carry. So that's kind of the biggest con that I do see with that champion. Let me tell you why you should play this champion, though. The pros of Miss Fortune. So my biggest pro that I feel of Miss Fortune is going to be her Q spell. What her Q spell does is it allows you that early game harass and that early game zoning that not a lot of other champions have. So with her, I prefer to max out the Q spell first. And the way that I do it, unfortunately I don't have a video here to show you in detail of how I try to play whenever I'm in a solo lane with her. It depends who I'm against. Ultimately, sometimes I get really lucky and I get that Veigar or that AP caster that goes middle and picks up an amplifying tome first instead of the Doran's ring, so they have no health and they're sitting there with 4 bars, and that gets me really, really excited because then I'm sitting there all excited with Miss Fortune's 2 big, ginormous boomsticks, just ready to take this 4 bar Veigar down. We'll just use Veigar. And what I do is Veigar begins to position himself always towards the back. So if I can get in with just a couple auto attacks there, if he does push forward, to put him in a predicament where I can then use double up. So double up, if you're not familiar with the skill, it's going to be a ricochet effect skill. So what it does is I will attack a minion. The minion will take my normal damage plus a scaling damage as the skill is leveled. And it then bounces from the minion to the next target back, which is where you want to try to position your enemy champion. When you do this, it's going to bounce from that minion to Veigar, as I'm using in this example, and deal that initial damage, only 115% of what was dealt to the minion. So that's where you're able to go through there. And that's a bar and a half early at level 1. And that's where you're able to create that zone and that pressure on him to push this champion back out of range from farming the gold and possibly out of range for farming the experience. So that is the biggest pro that I feel that Miss Fortune brings to the table, is that ability to early lane zone. And a lot of times you've got to look at the big picture. Yeah, her ultimate's great. It's very, very strong. Later in the game, you can almost do more damage with your right click than the ultimate. But what you're seeing at the beginning game makes for that later game. So if you can prevent that Veigar from taking that farm, from getting that experience, it's going to really cripple the opposing team, because their middle lane won't be where you're at. So then as you move into the ganking phase, you're going to be the stronger ganker than who you were against at middle. So again, this is a great harassment skill, and definitely what I would consider the #1 bread and butter skill of Miss Fortune early to mid game. So now that I've talked a little bit about that, let's head into some of the other skills here. Let's look at what I consider her late game, her best late game skill, which is going to be the W skill, which, as I said, Q is the bread and butter for earlier. W is going to be the bread and butter for the end of the game. So what the W does is it's a passive that has a magic damage increase. It starts at 6 and moves itself up to 14 with this champion. And it does scale a small amount with the amount of AD that you stack. So as you're building your items, your Bloodthirsters, your Infinity Edges, Black Cleaver, Last Whisper, whatever you're building, that's scaling as well. And one of the most important factors of this game, of this champion and specific skill, is going to be the active ability of it, which starts out at 30% and then goes all the way up to 50% upon using it. More importantly, it causes what's the same thing as a grievous wound to the enemy, which cripples their health regeneration, their healing done, as well as their lifesteal by 50%. So that can make or break in a team fight later on, and especially worthwhile looking at if you're picking champions that base themselves completely on regen. More commonly, Dr. Mundo. Dr. Mundo's ultimate is his prime reason that he becomes so tanky, and if you're able to mitigate what he's able to heal, and really increase the amount of damage that goes to him for yourself as well as your team by using the W skill, which will decrease his regen, it's definitely a great thing to look at while you're looking at counter picks. So it's one thing where I would consider that if I do get a Mundo picked against me, hey, I'm planning on playing a carry, I really decide, should I go for Misfortune here if they don't have a strong anti-carry, or in this case, if they did have a strong anti-carry, maybe I should move on to Tristana, which can do towards the same thing. Let's head over to the E. So we talked about W, let's talk about E. E is going to be a strong mid-game skill for your farm. This skill is going to allow you to maneuver yourself from lane to lane and push these lanes to begin to get tower chip. So as the laning phase begins to end and you start to work yourself at the ganking phase, you do have strut. By this time you have your boots. You're at like 460, 470 move speed while your strut's going, which gives you the maneuverability in the map. So go through, hit top lane, go through and use your Make It Rain skill, kill the enemy kill the enemy creeps, and push a tower. So that's very important, which is what this skill can do. Also, it's one way to help yourself in a situation where you begin to get ganked. So if you are in a spot where you do have an enemy champion chasing you, your strut's going to speed you up as long as you're not taking damage, of course, and you can toss that down in their pathing to slow them along the way so they cannot catch you near as quick. So that's how that works. Now let's move on to the most important mid-game skill that you see with Misfortune, which by far is going to be her ultimate. I talked to you a little bit about how E, which is Impure Shots, is going to be her late-game bread and butter. I've talked to you now on how Make It Rain is going to be her early game farm technique. Now let's talk about her mid-game team fight technique, which can be one of the most devastating skills in the game and can change an entire pace of the game here. So let's talk about one of the easiest ways to use this skill. So for example, you're taking on somebody. You're going through and fighting. You've got them down to 2 bars of health. They've got you at 3 bars of health. They then realize, you know what, at this rate, I'm going to die. I need to flash myself, ghost, or do whatever to escape this team fight. A follow-up with Misfortune's ult at this time will allow you that extra increased range and the ability to pick up a kill. I'm going to show you an example of it here. Ice Roses wasn't quite able to pick up the kill with this, but it does show you a way that this can be used for an escaping enemy. So let's go ahead and take a look at that real quick for you, and I hope you enjoy this part.
And to go for this tower as Nunu with very, very low health here. And it won't be long until Morgana gets that snare, which she was able to do. It's going to be followed up by the ultimate from Ice Roses, unfortunately not able to take it down.
So I'll play that again one more time for you if you didn't get a chance to get that or it was a little too quick. What happened here is Morgana coming in as Nunu beginning to fall out of position, Morgana landing the snare, and immediately Ice Rose is following up with that ultimate as this Nunu is using Blood Boil trying to run away. So you'll get to see this one more time, and I'll let you take a look at it, and you can kind of see how it's used. And you can get a good idea of what the range is. This gives you a great idea because it's showing you near a tower, so you can get a good idea of exactly how far this ultimate's going to go.
And to go for this tower as Nunu with very, very low health here. And it won't be long until Morgana gets that snare, which she was able to do. It's going to be followed up by the ultimate from Ice Roses, unfortunately not able to take it down.
Alright, so that is another example of her ultimate. So let me kind of base this ultimate again around a couple things. It is a channeling spell. So what a channeling spell is, it means that you can be interrupted and this ultimate can be canceled. So if you're doing that and a Mumu stuns you, your ult is canceled. If Poppy hits you away, your ult is canceled. If you get knocked up by the Whirlwind from Janna or from the Rupture from Cho'Gath, it's going to cancel this skill. So you have to really realize when it's best to use this and when to position yourself to use this. And it's also, I want to talk about how this can really make team comps as well. So some of your friendliest champions that you'll be with, again, is going to be like the Amumu, Galio, Morgana, those kind of champions. And I want to show you a good example of what a great team comp fight looks like, as this was recorded last night in that same ranked game from Gracchus. So let me show you this, as at first, I'll kind of tell you what's going to happen. Amumu is going to initiate with his ultimate, then immediately followed up with Morgana. While all this is happening, Misfortune places herself into the back of the fight, uses her ultimate to just add a ton of AoE burst damage to these guys, and pay close attention to how quick their health drops while this team comp's happening.
She just has an ultimate that is down, so you don't have to worry about the Poppy doing a ton of burst damage focused onto one person, that extra 30%. The biggest thing here is these guys need to be placing themselves in a predicament where they can initiate the fight. A large problem here is that the fight's being initiated onto them by Nunu while they're out of position, and there's not any kind of defense into it.
Oh my god, why didn't he hold right there? He would have hit 4 of them.
Yep, and Amumu did have a GA. Scion chasing right now. Then this is the point where this Amumu needs to commit himself to the fight. He does get the ultimate off there, followed by Morgana's ultimate. What a great team comp here. Next, we do see the Misfortune ultimate. A ton of burst damage going on these guys right now. Ezreal, the last person, or Ezreal and Shaco, the last 2 people standing here. Looks like Ezreal might get away. Ezreal ult going off. Amumu going to be chasing down Shaco. Looks like Ezreal with a follow-up kill onto Morgana. Misfortune.
All right, so basically there, you get to see a great positioning of that fight, and Amumu choosing to use his ult there was very good because it limits them the paths that they can escape as they're stuck in between the different areas of brush. So what that's going to do is force them on very excursions of where they're going to flee to as this comp's going on. It's going to cause some sense of chaos between these guys, where you see Shaco trying to escape from the back, Ezreal trying to escape from the middle, everybody else just stuck there, taking all of that damage. So it was a great team fight there. And up until this point, these guys had really struggled throughout the game. The score was not too far off there, and this team fight and that additional gold was something that definitely brought them into a point where they're like, hey, you know what? If we keep doing this, we're going to win this game. And that's something that continued throughout the game, and they were able to be successful finishing that off. So now I've talked about skills. Let me move on and discuss some of the most important stuff here, as we're going to go to, well, let's go to rune pages on this. Here's going to be my rune pages that I'm at right now. This is the, oh, I'm sorry, I don't play caster with that. My carry rune page is what I use for Misfortune, and one of the key things that I do is stack armor pen in this. So I do take all 3 quintessence of the armor penetration. So that does add up there. And then I take the greater seals of, or the greater marks of desolation, which is again adding on to the armor penetration. My yellows, I choose to go with the seals of replenishment, which do add the increased mana regeneration, which gives you that sustainability and ability to harass during the early parts of this game. So as the laning phase happens, you want to be able to use that double up quite often, and this is going to help you do that and help you keep the zoning and lane control that you're looking forward to. Since Misfortune is quite often a middle champion, and you do solo quite often against AP champions, I choose to take the greater glyphs of shielding, which gives a magic resist per level. So it's something that will add up and help you out later on in the game, but it's something that's very important early game to stop yourself from getting harassed by champions such as Vladimir or Anivia, champions that can be quite difficult to play at in middle, especially Vladimir, one that you don't have the strength and ability to completely harass down, as he does lifesteal a lot of that back. But that's the runes that I choose to go with. Let me talk a little bit next on Masteries. Masteries, I do a standard 2109, making sure that I take it into Deadliness and Crippled. The new Exhaust is great. Not only does it help you against the AD champions, but it's very viable using against champions that are going to be your AP champions. And Exhaust onto a champion such as an Annie before a Tibbers ultimate is very, very devastating to the damage output that she's able to do. So that's one of the reasons why I choose Exhaust, and it does give you that little ability at the beginning of the game. So Exhaust is what I take as one summoner skill. The next summoner skill that I take is Flash. With Strut, I feel that Ghost isn't necessarily needed. I take Flash so that early on I can position myself into a team fight and create a gank on the middle. And later on in the game, it's definitely what I'm going to use to escape from a fight if an anti-carry is able to get towards me. And again, it's all going to be your positioning going into these fights. So if you play a couple games and you can't get the hang of it right away, maybe consider picking up Flash as one of your summoner skills, and try using that to escape at the situations when an anti-carry does move in on you. I also get, I get a couple points into sorcery just to get that little bit of cooldown reduction, because I do have to take 21 skills in this. The attack speed's increased by 4% here with the alacrity, and then I take Sunder, which gives me a little bit more armor penetration as well. I do take 1 into offensive mastery, a little bit extra minion damage, nothing that's too devastating there. Brute force increases damage by 3. Again, that's going to help early on with any of the last hitting. Then I take into lethality, which increases my critical strikes per damage by 10%. And then I take havoc, which increases my physical and magical damage by 5%. And then just basic utility, 3 into perseverance, 1 into Ghost. I don't know why I put 1 into Ghost there. I definitely wouldn't put 1 into Ghost. I just gone through this quickly here. From here, I would go 1 into Good Hands, and then 4 into Awareness, and then 1 into not Creed. I would do 1 into the Utility Mastery here, just because that extra 15% when you do pick up a red buff is pretty important in my opinion. So I definitely want to make sure that we grab that. So this is going to be my rune setup here. Item builds, unfortunately, I don't have a visual that I can show you here. For item builds, I do like to do Bloodthirster first. A little bit of health or Lifesteal does keep you into the lane a lot longer if you pick that up as one of your first items, and it's a great item to begin stacking and picking up damage early with. I follow that up immediately with Zeal, which I then build into a Phantom Dancer. Phantom Dancer is one item that really complements your passive, which is Strut. This is going to, at one point, give you near 500 move speed, which gives you that maneuverability again to move from lane to lane, also to move around the map and get 2 team fights, and if you're not attacked, get you out of a team fight sooner if you're trying to run from an anti-carry. So that's why I choose to go Phantom Dancer. I then follow that up immediately with an Infinity Edge. Between these 2 items should put you close to 60 to 70% crit chance. At this point, I usually choose to go a Last Whisper or a Black Cleaver, depending on the team comp. The extra bit of attack speed is definitely nice, but the Last Whisper still gives you that 40% armor penetration, which if they're quite a tanky team, you're going to want something like that to take them down. The boots I choose to go with are usually Mercury Treads. You're a champion that can't be stunned for very long without being completely decimated, so the quicker you can get out of a stun early on in a team fight, the more chance of you being able to flash away or escaping and surviving greatly increases. So that's why I choose to go those different skills. So as the items, like I said, I went Bloodthirster, Phantom Dancer, Infinity Edge, and then usually Last Whisper. Those are going to be my core items along with my boots. At this point, I may consider going Guardian's Angel if I'm really getting focused down early in the team fights, just because at that point, you're going to see a lot of different things being built. You're very late into this game, and your opponents are going to start building Thornmail. You're going to, especially if you're just demolishing them, or everybody's going to realize, hey, you know what, this Misfortune is pretty farmed. She's going to be our first target. And that Guardian Angel is going to allow you to come back up and possibly make or break a team fight again. So that's going to be my item builds for this. And this is pretty much just the basic guide that I have for you for Misfortune. I don't think there's a whole lot else that I want to go over here. Oh, I do want to mention that we're doing a lot of different casts for League of Legends now. So if you'd like to, go ahead and head over to e-rev TV. I've got about 4 or 5 different ones archived now, so you can check those out. And there's going to be plenty of casts coming up in the future as things start to grow here. They're not going to be the most amazing quality because there's no spectator mod, so I can't just immediately go in and do this. A lot of stuff that I'm doing is going to be restreaming of higher tiered players, just so you can kind of get an idea of what's going on, and a lot of color commentary on what you're seeing them do and how that affects the aspect of the game they're creating. So make sure you check that out. Otherwise, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us here this evening for the first champion test drive, and next week make sure you guys join us as the new champions release. We'll definitely be getting something else put up for you, but on behalf of e-rev TV, I am Pat, the Twiz Harrison, and guys, thank you again for joining, and we are out. Adios.